because people have gotten used to it. But the tiers are not labels. Okay? We don't have this group over here that are, oh, you're my tier 1 kids. Oh, and this group over here, oh, you're my tier 2 kids, and these are my tier 3 kids. The tiers have become a label. Oh, God, I got 3 tier 3 kids in my classroom. No, the kid has tier 3 needs in a specific area of mathematics, or science, or behavior. It's not a label, but it's become a label. Great innovators don't see different things, they see the same things differently. So how do we look at what we deal with every day in our schools and look at it differently? Here's some MTSS realities. From a legal perspective, the new Elementary and Secondary Education Act gives you permission to grow your own. That's the big philosophical shift in the law. Now again, you're still bounded by what the state does, but the deal is that in the law, it specifies that there are certain things that the U.S. Secretary of Education can't do because of what happened before. So they flipped it, and rightly so, because you've got to deal with your local issues, needs, kids, staff, resources. So you have permission to create and grow your own. Why is the shift? Because No Child Left Behind largely didn't work. All students are going to be proficient by 2014. How'd that work out? And once they figured out it wasn't going to work out, what did they do? They started giving waivers. But they dictated the waivers. No Child Left Behind. They punished failure rather than celebrate success long. So if you're an F school, again, there's still some of that in the law, but what's in the law is the state's only going to look at the 50 lowest functioning schools in the state. What happens is you're in a school that's not meeting the needs, the district, you come up with your own plan and it's overseen by the district. It's not impressed by the state, other than they know that they're tracking the progress. There was an inspiring by firing mentality. So when we had schools that were critically low, what did we do? We fired staff. We fired administrators. Well, that's very old-fashioned. We're not differentiating disabilities. We're still not doing that. There are 13 different disabilities under the Individual for Disabilities Education Act, and yet we're still treating them as one subpopulation. And so in different buildings, in different districts, you've got different percentages of kids with disabilities. So how can you be held accountable for the same results? And the answer is you shouldn't be. PBIS dawned on me last night. I'm in the PBIS neighborhood today. I'm in the SEL neighborhood. And understand, I ran the PBIS program for the state of Arkansas for 13 years, but not using Oregon and Connecticut, using what we did, which is why they brought me in there. There was a national study done about 4 years ago that evaluated the national PBIS. And first of all, it's a framework. And so you pick from the menu. And so what George Sadai and Rob Porter said is, we got 19,000 schools doing PBIS, but we have no idea what they're doing. Because they're picking from the framework. Most of the work is being done at the tier 1 level. Half of the schools never get to tier 2 and 3. Most of the schools never sustain past 3 years. And most of the work is being done in the common areas of the school, not in the classrooms, where parenthetically they can spend 85% of their time. Folks, if I had 19,000 schools, I could find some successes. Is that because of the program? No. Those are random results. And yet they go to Congress because the Office of Special Ed Program, which has invested millions of dollars since 1997 in PBIS, keeps trotting over to the senators, and the senators and congressmen don't know the right questions to ask. So it looks very impressive. But the deal is, folks, there's no science to practice. The glass is half empty. And I'm probably stepping on toes here. And I get it. But the deal is that where PBIS has been successful, it hasn't been because of PBIS. The RTI framework. Here's another study just out about a year or so ago, commissioned by the U.S. Department of Education. 24,000 first through third graders, 146 schools, 13 states, 3 years with comparison kids. And these kids, they compared the kids getting tier 2 RTI versus the kids in the control groups who should have been getting RTI, but their schools didn't provide it. So what were the results? In the first grade, we're talking 24,000 kids, folks, pretty big sample. First grade, the kids who were in RTI lost academic ground when compared to the kids who were just in the regular classroom, who in a different school would have qualified for tier 2. The grade 2 and 3 kids, no significant change of academics in the comparisons. But what does that mean? That means that the schools were running it, giving all these services, supports, time, and effort to the kids in tier 2 for 2nd grade and 3rd grade, and the kids who were in regular classrooms had the same outcomes. And the deal is that it didn't matter the income level of the school and kids, the racial groups of the native languages. That's the National RTI program, folks. And these are the studies that get hidden. What does that say? There's got to be a better mousetrap out there. It's not working. We've got to re-envision this, and you have the permission by law to do it. Doug, Chris, and I wrote a little booklet which identifies the critical flaws in the RTI process and what needs to occur as solutions. And it's free. We'll make it available to everyone. We don't sell it anyways. It's on my website, so if you go to the store, part of my website on www.projectachieve.net, you'll find it. They have to go through a couple of pages. But the issue is, folks, it's not working. And it's not working because of science. This is not opinion. This is science. This is incontrovertible science. And this is not a competition. If it's a competition for student outcomes. In your new law, Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the word here, it's there. What does appear are the following terms: positive behavioral interventions and supports, and multi-tiered systems of supports. They appear in the law a handful of times. Critically, they appear in the law in lower case with no acronyms. Let me say that again, lowercase, no acronyms. I did this 2 weeks ago. If you go on the National PBIS website, there is still a page that says that ESEA and IDEA require big capital letter PBIS. It's a lie. It's a flat out lie. Just to be validated, folks, just call it the law and do the word search. Call it the law and do the word search. It's in lowercase. And it's under certain circumstances. You are not required to do the big PBIS unless your state, from a legal or regulatory perspective, tells you you have to. You're not required to do the Office of Special Ed Programs MTSS program. You need to have an MTSS program lowercase. And the thing is that OSEP has known this for over 15 years because I called it 15 years ago. And they still haven't had the smarts to change it on the website. This is the definition in the law of multi-tiered services, folks. A comprehensive continuum of evidence-based systemic practices to support a rapid response to students' needs, with regular observation to facilitate data-based construction and decision-making. What does that mean? Within reason, create your own. Create your own. That's what the law requires you to do, folks. It doesn't require you to take on somebody else's framework. So we've got to revisit, and we've got to look at how are we doing it, and what do we need to do, and what are the outcomes. And we've got to do it from a student perspective, from a student need perspective, and from a systems perspective, but the systems is you. Your district down to your schools, up to your district. I want you to take 3 minutes. I know it's very quick, but give you the time to watch it. 3 minutes, pick out one topic point that I've made that right now is resonating with you, just to give you about a 3-minute kind of processing. Go. All right, so not to interrupt the conversation, but I will. Comments, questions, issues, concerns, disagreements are fine, absolutely. If there's a disagreement, let's put it on the table. We may agree to disagree, but nonetheless. So, comments, questions, comments, issues, reactions. We've got James here on the mic.
He's ready to go.
For us, or that's left, the notion of when people use language about that's a tier 2 kid or a tier 3 kid, that really irks us as well. And we're just talking about breaking that down and reframing in a more positive and systems level perspective, where it's okay to use tiers within the language of how we're going to organize our work, but not who a kid is as a person.
Good. Good for you. Excellent.
Don't make me call on you. I have a can of popsicle sticks ready to go.
Anyone?
We heard lots of discussion, so we know that it's happening out there.
And understand, folks, I'm a psychologist, so I'm comfortable with silence.
Did you talk about what a tier 2 intervention should look like, or how it, I know it's a continuum of support, but what are some like general explanation of tier 2?
And I'm going to show you, but in essence, and this may not be completely clear. You're going to have to make it clear at the local level. We're talking about basically core instruction, strategic intervention and instruction, and intensive intervention and instruction, and especially with social emotional behavioral at the tier 3 level to some degree. That also includes crisis management. But in some states, it's just nuts. Okay? New Mexico, and I don't know if they've changed it, but I do a lot of work in New Mexico. I don't think they've changed it. Tier 3 is special ed. Well, how dumb is that? And my point is this, folks. You can have, and you know this, you can have a child or an adolescent on an IEP with no direct services. They could simply have consultative services. So how can that be tier 3? That just, the litmus test is common sense, folks. If it doesn't make sense, it probably doesn't make sense. Okay, you trust your gut. That makes no sense. So the tier two, I don't worry about the tier, I really don't. I want to know from a scope and sequence perspective, in whatever area, behavior, social emotional, literacy, where are the skill gaps, and then you're going to see, why do we have the skill gaps, and what do we need to do to close the gap? And so the services drive the intensity because it's driven by the student need. And so call it whatever you want. I mean, one of the things that we do, and if you look at either the creative leadership website or my website, because we overlap to some degree, that I've got about 8 webinars that we've done over the last year for different groups, a lot of them with creative leadership. And we did one last week on the get-go process. And long story short, basically what we're doing is we're storing, the mantra is the beginning of the school year starts in April. The beginning of the new school year starts in April. And what we're doing with the get-go process is we're looking at the progress and the needs that were met or not met of all the kids in the school, but we're story mapping those kids into next year's homerooms. Or again, middle school and high school, it's a little bit different, but also identifying now in April and May, what are the critical instructional intervention needs? And we story map the resources around the kids. And so 2 things happen. Here's one thing. You've got gap kids where the gap is too big. And core plus remediation does not work. That's what the RTI people say, core plus remediation. We get them core instruction, 45 minutes of remediation, or 30 minutes of remediation, or whatever. But here's the deal, folks. If you've got a 5th grader functioning at the 3rd grade level, the gap may be too large. They're not going to benefit from core instruction, and they're not getting enough remediation. So you've got to change the delivery system, and you may have to teach those kids, especially on a skill level, relative to mastery at the 3rd grade level. The administrators get all nervous about that. So I asked 2 questions. If you teach that student, 5th grade student, functioning at the 3rd grade level, teach them at the 5th grade level, are they going to pass the 5th grade benchmark? And the administrator says no. If you teach that student at the 3rd grade level, are they going to pass the 5th grade benchmark? No. Well, if you're going to get, in this respect, that same educational outcome, where do you want to teach your kids? As educators. You're going to teach them at the 3rd grade level. And that's not that you're not going to give them literacy at the 5th grade level, but if they're at the 3rd grade level, folks, they probably haven't mastered all the decoding skills. And again, the core plus remediation doesn't work. Last point, and then I'll move on. Some of our districts, certainly not in this room, are working on a feudal system, the FEUDAL. Okay? So you acquire resources in your school, you dig a moat around the school, and the resources don't leave. No, the resources follow the kids. And so you've got a particularly difficult 5th grade, and they all go to the 6th grade level, and the resources that have helped you be successful with those 5th graders, to some degree, need to follow the kids. Maybe not in a physical, tangible way, but in a functional way. Is this making sense? But what happens is we get building permits and they say, no, they're mine! No, they're not yours. They're ours. Because we're still in public education. Journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But we've got to take the steps, and sometimes having that outside person to facilitate the stepping is important, because let's be honest, folks, there are things that I've said today, and Doug has said, Chris has said, that you have said in your districts before. But sometimes, and it's not fair, but it's real, people don't listen to you. They listen to us because we're the experts. Okay? And that's just inherently not fair, but that's reality. Sometimes the outside consultant facilitates, as long as that outside consultant doesn't make you dependent on him or her. So the MTSS process is about providing kids the academic, social, emotional, behavioral services, support, strategies, and programs to make them successful. But this includes enrichment. It includes the vast majority of your quote typical kids. This is about effective school and schooling. It's not about when kids fail. So the process starts in the effective classroom with effective instruction, effective classroom management, where teachers know what the mastery outcomes are. They know how to evaluate in-house with curriculum-based assessments, whether or not a kid is mastering or not, and they're able to do the progress monitoring. We've become so dependent on these interim assessments. I don't know what a Lexile is. I have to keep asking. Okay? But if you're using NEWA, and again, like a lot of my consults, and we're using NEWA, that's fine. And they tell me what the Lexile is, and we know, oh, that's not good. And then we're sitting there and we're saying, oh, what's the problem? We don't know, because NEWA gives you a list of all these different possible things that are within this Lexile band. Well, which one is the one or ones that the kid's having problems with? So what we're doing is we're playing intervention roulette. And remember, folks, when you go to the casino, the house usually wins, which means that our kids are losing. Teachers do database problem solving all the time. When the kid doesn't master the material, what do? They do an error analysis. They do a read aloud. They do a think aloud. They do some of the metacognitive stuff because they're trying to figure out, why is the kid not getting it? But sometimes it magnifies to a higher level. And that's the back end of the multi-tier. But the whole thing starts in the instructional environment. And in the instructional environment are past and present. Past and present, teacher instructional factors, curricular factors, and kid factors. And the deal is, in an effective classroom where we have successful kids, everybody shares the wealth. But when a kid is not successful, sometimes, not in this room, what's a kid's problem? Well, what if the kid was a curricular casualty? Or an instructional casualty? See, the deal is your building level team, whatever you call it, your MTSS team or whatever, kids are not referred to the MTSS team. The instructional environment is referred. And that's how we train the entire building, the district. That's in our documentation, the instructional environment. Because I know in the social emotional behavioral level folks, you have no teachers in your systems that inadvertently reinforce inappropriate student behavior. Or do you? Because if you do, and the instructional environment is not referred, and you do all the assessments on the kid, you're not going to ask that question, and you're not going to uncover that reality. And it's not a blaming game, folks. It's an explaining game. Okay? I'm going to just frame it as, it's Illuminate CSI. Y'all know CSI on television? Okay? It's an investigative process. But the deal is, if I'm a forensic psychologist and I go onto a crime scene and I've prejudged and I know who I think did it, then how's my data collection going to be? Is it going to be reliable and valid? No. I'm going to utilize the data that confirms my prejudgment. So if we assume the kid has the problem, we do all the assessments on the kid. What if the kid had a long-term sub last year? What if the kid has been in 5 different schools in 3 different districts with 4 different who can't learn, or a kid who's not had an opportunity to learn? And that's significant in the difference relative to the instructional and the intervention approach. And we've got to ask these questions at tier 1, not wait until tier 3 and say, oh, well, look, I didn't realize the kid's been in 5 districts. I didn't realize, I've been working on a case in Michigan now for 3 years because I've been up there before. Okay, we found out this is a kid that is, we basically referred to the court. The court is basically looking and doing all the decision making around social, emotional, and behavioral. And the deal is, what we uncovered all of a sudden, because somebody asked the right question, is that the kid got hit in the head by his brother with a baseball bat at 2 years old. Could that be significant? Maybe. I don't know. But the deal is, we can't wait to ask these questions. On the back end, when the kids continue to not fail, or if they are significantly not failing now, then we've got to formalize the process. And the process is we've got to identify the problem as opposed to the symptoms, and this is all evolving, but we've got to identify, why is the student not succeeding, academically or behaviorally. We've got to do the problem analysis before we move to intervention or instructional modification. If we go from problem identification to intervention, you're playing intervention roulette. And you may be magnifying the problem. And I'm not blaming, I'm just saying, folks. If every one of you was running 102 temperature right now, There may be 5 or 8 different reasons in this room as to why you're running a temperature. The temperature is a symptom. That's not the problem. And so we got to do a medical diagnostic assessment to figure out what do we do to knock out the temperature and prevent it in the future. The intensity of services are driven by student outcomes. And some kids do not have to go from tier 3 services for a specific issue, then to tier 2, then to tier 1. They may, they don't have to. That's based on the data and the decision making. So the pieces again, and what I'm going to finish up the last segment here is give you 3, in essence, blueprints. Positive academic interventions, the supports and services, what we call the PASS model. Multi-tier. Doug talked about this. Chris especially talked about it, curricular alignment and total instructional alignment. So there's an infrastructure that's got to be there in order to get this down to the student level. We've got to have effective instruction and grouping. We've got to have effective differentiated instruction, point. And I know there may be a couple of classroom teachers, but not many. Go into any classroom at the elementary level and pick out an academic area and ask the teacher how many functional skill groups he or she is teaching with their homeroom class, if it's a self-contained. And here's the deal. Okay, I go into 3rd grades all the time, and I've got kids in one 3rd grade classroom at the pre-primer level, same classroom all the way up to the middle or end of 5th grade in reading. And if you functionally skill group those kids, there are about 8 different skill groups. Teacher can't differentiate, folks. How can a teacher differentiate with more than 3 or 4 groups? And the answer is I can't, not with equity and excellence. And so how do we organize our classrooms, whether it's a walk to read or at the end of the year, we take the data and we put and make that whole room only have 3 functional skill groups. How do we set the teachers up to be able to successfully differentiate? It's not that they can't, it's just that they can't. They know how to do it, but they don't have the conditions to do it with it. We've got to have prepared, ready, and motivated kids. We've got to teach some of our kids in their zone of success, folks. We've got to teach them at their functional skill level. That's how we teach adults. We're teaching kids at a level of frustration. What's going to happen? You're going to get frustration. And sometimes what happens is the frustration ends up on a continuum. And down here, the kids are checking out because they can't do it. They're just immobilized, and over here, they're acting out. How many of your kids are behaviorally acting out because of academic frustration? That's not a discipline problem, folks. That is not a discipline problem. That's a behavioral problem. And I'm not splitting hairs here. Because if a kid is behaviorally acting out because of academic frustration, the discipline code is not going to change the behavior. Am I right? So you want to talk about disproportionality. That's the beginning of the process. We know we've got effective teachers. And we have effective rubrics in terms of effective teaching. But are we using it for mentoring and professional development, or are we still playing gotcha? And I know some of our state legislatures have forced us into the gotcha game. We don't have to play it. We don't have to play it, folks. And under the new law, we don't have to play it. Academic engagement, well-designed progress monitoring, remediation, accommodation, modification, early intervention. Here's the diagram. This is the roadmap. Effective instruction, universal design and differentiation, continuous progress monitoring. Assisted supports. We don't use assisted supports enough, folks. If a kid has an expressive writing problem and can be remediated, but right now is getting in the way of other parts of the academic program, why can we not use speech to text? We're not using it. We're not using text to speech. Every computer anymore has text to speech. Now again, the synthesized voice may not be great, but nonetheless, remediation, accommodation, modification. There are some overlaps, but those are different things. teachers to do the assessments to figure out, is this a remediation, an accommodation, or a modification issue? And then what areas of, because within each of these areas, there are about 4 or 5 domains. 4 or 5 domains. And yet the traditional school, what's the accommodation of the day? Preferential seating. Well, he's getting accommodations, right. He may not be getting the right accommodations, given the functional assessment resulting in the needs of the student. The behavioral side. We're chasing after programs, folks. We're chasing after programs. And you can't do multiple programs. And programs are not a one-size-fits-all. We've got to go science to practice. Because the essence of them all, folks, is social, emotional, and behavioral self-management. That's the essence of the whole process. Okay? And some of these programs, it's not embedded in that. Teaching kids interpersonal, social problem solving, conflict prevention, resolution, and emotional control and coping skills. Well, if I've got a kid impacted by trauma, that's probably emotional control and coping. But there's an essence of skills there, folks. I did the trauma training, folks. And the thing what I was just amazed at the quote, tier 2 and tier 3 level, okay, at the clinical level of trauma, the interventions, the same interventions I learned 40 years ago at Syracuse University. There are clinical cognitive behavioral interventions, progressive muscle relaxation therapy. And the deal is, if you've got some kids, and some of these kids, you're going to have to adjunct that with medication. And if you go into another box, it's not going to work. Those kids are not motivated to act out. This is a biological basis. And the deal is we know what they need, I think, I do, most of you do, I've got statistical psychologists in the room. The question is, do we have access to the people and the resources? But we need trauma sensitivity, but let's not do it as a program, okay? Restorative justice. Why are we hearing so much about that? Why? Because the federal government has put a couple of $1 million into a national TA center on reformative justice. But here's the deal, folks. If the kid doesn't have the skills, the kid can apologize and restore all he or she wants. If they don't have the emotional control skills, they can apologize and restore all they want. Folks, you can't motivate a kid out of a skill deficit. If the kid doesn't have the emotional control skills, and I'm not saying that the apology is a bad thing, but don't expect the apology to change the behavior. But that's in the analysis. That's in the functional assessment, little f, little a, of understanding the root cause of the problem. Here's the science, folks. And this is the science that needs to be involved in all of the things that we do. But this science is missing. Nobody's talking about this science. And this is not me. This is science. But I'm going to do it quickly. Does it make sense? Use the litmus test right now. I'll give you the research, but does this make sense? If we don't have relationships and positive climates in our school or classroom, what's going to happen? Everything else is dead. If you've ever worked in a toxic work environment, folks, do I have to say anything more? Okay. Behavioral expectations and skill instruction. Behavioral. Respectful, responsible, and safe does not communicate or translate into behavior. Those are constructs. Those are constructs of behavior. You cannot teach cooperation. You cannot teach respect. You cannot teach honesty. You cannot teach being polite. You can teach the behaviors of cooperation, the behaviors of respect. You understand what I'm saying? Okay? Our football team, we can have a West Coast orientation to our playbook. You don't teach West Coast. You teach plays. You teach the playbook. How many times does a basketball team get on the court and practice the same play before the coach is comfortable installing it in the game plan? Behavioral instruction, to behavioral memorization, to behavioral application, to behavioral organization. That's how we teach. We don't teach constructs. Character ed teaches constructs. Every once a month, I'm not trying to step on toes, folks, okay? We have our character assembly. I'm sorry, what a waste of time. Folks, teach the behaviors, skill instruction, motivation and accountability. You've got skill deficit, you've got performance deficit kids. The skill deficit kids have not learned, mastered, cannot apply the skills. The motivational deficit kids know what to do, they choose not to do it. So with the skill deficit kids, the intervention, folks, is instruction. The question is who, what, where, when, and under what level of intensity. If a kid is skill deficit, there's only one way to deal with it, instruction. If the kid is motivational deficit or performance deficit, then you've got to figure out the motivational things to motivate that kid to want to do it. But that's a slippery slope. Because you can only create motivational conditions, you can't make kids do it. If you're making kids do it, folks, you're managing their behavior. You're not moving to self-management. And sometimes we have to manage kids' behavior, to be sure. But if we're not teaching and moving toward the self-management and the self-motivation and the self-accountability, then we're not going to get self-managed. The consistency is in the middle because the whole thing has got to be consistent. We've got to have everyone working the deal. But not everyone is the adults, it's also the kids. And especially at the peer group level, and that gets into the special situations. Because you've got 3 different types of special situations: setting, student, and circumstance. So you've got setting special situations. What happens in the classroom doesn't always happen out in the hallway, bathroom, buses, playground, cafeteria, right? Because the dynamics in those common areas are different. More kids, less supervision, less physical boundaries, peer group influence, and so on. Why do we have more teasing, talking, and bullying in the cafeteria and the hallways? Second special situation is teasing, talking, bullying, harassment, hazing, and fighting. And the third special situation are the idiosyncratic special situations of some of your kids and what they bring to the table. So if they're coming from a home of trauma or homelessness or disruption or dysfunction or divorce or whatever the D is, then we've got to understand that those may be impacting, contributing to their issues. But here's the deal, folks, is most of the out-of-school stuff is correlational, not causal. And Chris talked about this. And here's the litmus test. Do all kids who come from poverty have social, emotional, behavioral, and academic problems? No. Does poverty increase the probability that they may have difficulties? Yes. Does it assure it? No. Those are correlational, folks. To a large degree, those factors are correlational. And what that means is we've got to help the kids to cope, to learn the skills, to be able to maintain the self-motivation and accountability. And I'm not saying cut off the home and the community. I mean, we've got to do, reach outs to the community in the home, but we can't put all the eggs in that basket, because if we fix the home, that doesn't necessarily fix the kid. Want to talk about interventions? Here's a very brief outline. And I put them in tier 2, and I do it, the reason why I do it is because these are not tier 1, tier 3, okay? And I'm not trying to be ugly here, I'm just trying to be honest. For the first 20 years of PBIS, they didn't want to talk about social skills training. I mean, I was there, folks. So guy used to come in my workshops in the early 90s. I'm that old. They didn't want to talk about social skills training. Then all of a sudden they decided, well, we're going to talk about social skills training, but we're going to do it as a tier 2. Well, how does that make sense? So we wait for the kids to fail, and then we give them remediation. Most of the tier 2 for eons in PBIS has been what? Check and connect and check in and check out. Or what if the root causes of the kids' difficulties are not going to be, quote, remediated through those interventions? Why would you invest those resources? And so what they do is they do check in and check out, check and connect, and then when the kid is not succeeding, then they blame the kid and say, this is a bigger problem than we thought. No, it was the wrong intervention because you didn't do the assessment to figure out why the kid was having difficulties. We've got all of these different interventions, folks, that have been around for 15, 20, 25 years. They are scientifically based, evidence-based, but not enough people know about them. Quickly. Okay. Go to solution 6, the multi-tier. And again, I've talked about some of it in the academic and the behavior. But here's some of the big picture, big idea. The mode of operation in a school needs to be problem-solving, consultation, and intervention. Not wait for the kid to fail before testing placement. So the foundational mode of operation. The question is, do you have a culture of consultation in your building? Because some buildings don't. All due respect, teachers are afraid to admit that they don't know how to do things. And what do then? They close the door, they look at the calendar, and they say, it's okay. There's only 100 more days of school left. I can get this out. No, I'll just keep doing the same thing the way, okay. Folks, I love teachers, okay? I'm up here because of teachers. I believe that all teachers are effective with some kids. Some teachers are effective with many kids, and very few teachers are effective with all kids. And that's not a comment on the teachers, folks. That's a comment on the kids. The kids are coming with such levels of diversity and history and background and motivation and skill. Why would we think that a teacher is going to be successful with all kids? I'm not successful with all kids, but the deal is, if I get a case when I was in private practice and I didn't know what to do with it, or I wasn't skilled, what did I do? I either got a consult or I referred it out. But see, in the teaching and the educational profession, the consultation part of it is not always part of the culture. We've got to change that. It is a no fault to admit, I don't know what to do with this case. And the reality is, folks, you most effective teachers, that's the first thing they'll say. They'll say, come into my classroom and observe, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or missing something. We've got to have that with all teachers. It has got to be, it's got to be a climate of consultation and a no fault. We've done spoke to these things. What are we trying to do when we get into, I've done everything in my classroom, I know what to do from a teacher's perspective. We've got to use a database problem-solving process. We teach everybody in the building the same database problem-solving process. Why have just the quote experts have it? The teachers need a systematic database problem-solving process. What is it? Basically, it's the scientific method applied to psychoeducational issues. That's all it is. The scientific method. We generate hypotheses, we collect the data, we confirm or reject the hypotheses. But part of it is also looking at the very beginning. It's what we call first things first. Looking at the records. This is where Illuminate is unbelievable, because what we've done with Illuminate is we've created a student record review protocol, and they do the wiring, and Illuminate, you hit the button, basically putting the kid's social security student number, and all of the available data on that kid gets pulled into the protocol. So you've got 70 to 75% of the data already pulled. That's a touch of a button. But we've got to do that at the classroom teacher level. We've got to sit there and figure out what the root cause of the problem is. And sometimes that means we've got to go to the grade level team and phone a friend and get collegial consultation. And sometimes we need to go up to the building level to the multidisciplinary team. But here's the rub. You don't have to acknowledge. In a lot of districts, to be able to go up and get an audience with a multidisciplinary team, you've got to do 3 interventions for 6 weeks, collect the data to demonstrate that the interventions didn't work. And that's the ticket to ride. Folks, what that is forcing teachers to do is one of 2 things. Either they take their ball and go home and they say, I'm not playing. And so then you find the casualty at the end of the year. Or they go on the internet and they pull down interventions that have no hope of success just to comply with your meaningless, because it came from the federal government, the meaningless criteria that you've got to do interventions before you go to the team. That doesn't meet the litmus test of logic, folks. That's delaying services. And in fact, again, teachers are then implementing interventions and making the problem worse sometimes. We've got to provide the consultation with the teacher. It's not take 3 aspirins and see me in the morning. Okay? What we've got to do is at the district, at the building level, we assign a consultant to the classroom teacher or teaching team who goes into the classroom to vet the problem. We don't solve the problem at the table, folks, you can't. How can you solve the problem sight unseen? So we have these marathons where we admire the problem, then all of a sudden the people around the table start shooting ideas at the classroom teacher, and then they pat the teacher on the back and they say, go forth, be good, hope it works out for you. Folks, our meetings are 30 to 45 minutes long. All you have to decide is, do we have enough data to determine who the best consultant is, to follow the teacher back to the setting where the problem is, and vet the problem. The assessment of the problem at the multidisciplinary level is in the classroom or the setting where the problem occurs, not around the conference table, because that's not working. Sometimes the interventions don't work. We continue to collect the progress monitoring data. But then the other goal, fourth goal of this process, is professional development. So the teachers understand, we're just not going to tell you what to do. We're going to work together, and you're going to walk out of this consult understanding the root causes of this kid, why we chose this intervention and instructional approach, and how this approach could work with another student sometime down the road. So we're building capacity through the case study process. We've got this, it's manualized, folks, it's on the website, okay? So, you know, and it's not, I didn't make it up, folks. This is 15 years, I mean, beyond the time before I ever got to Arkansas. This is 15 years of field testing in the state of Arkansas in multiple different settings, but across the country. I've done this in Native American, I've done this in Alaska, I've done it, but the point is, it's a blueprint. And so what we do on a district level, and the school level, is we work the blueprint and retrofit it to your needs. The problem-solving process. Everyone's trained. Assessment follows screening. These are things that Chris talked about. Database problem-solving begins in tier 1. Kids do not have to sequentially move into the tiers. So, what do we do? Again, we talked about a roadmap, a blueprint of effective schooling and schooling. Talked about, I gave you permission. It's yours, folks. Do it, work it. If you need help, find the consultants. If you need our help, give us a phone call. The academic roadmap, the behavioral roadmap, and then what do we do with the struggling kids? In summary, Jeff Canada, I think, says it best. The time is now for change.
This year, there are going to be millions of our children that we're going to needlessly lose. That we could, right now, we could save them all. You saw the quality of the educators who were here. Do not tell me they could not reach those kids and save them. I know they could. It is absolutely possible. Why haven't we fixed this? Those of us in education have held on to a business plan that we don't care how many millions of young people fail. We're going to continue to do the same thing that didn't work. And nobody is getting crazy about it, right? Enough to say enough is enough. So here's a business plan that simply does not make any sense. You know, I grew up in the inner city, and there were kids who were failing in schools 56 years ago when I first went to school. And those schools are still lousy today. 56 years later. And you know something about a lousy school? It's not like a bottle of wine, right? Where you say like 87 was like a good year, right? That's not how this thing, I mean, every single year, it's still the same approach, right? One size fits all. If you get it, fine, and if you don't, tough luck. Just tough luck. Why haven't we allowed innovation to happen? Do not tell me we can't do better than this. Look, you go into a place that's failed kids for 50 years, and you say, so what's the plan? And they say, well, we're going to do what we did last year, this year. What kind of business model is that?
A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but where they ought to be. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much.
You know how every time I listen to you, I pick up something else, and I think what rung in my ear this time was we continue to teach the level of frustration, and we're surprised when our students are frustrated. Yeah. And this idea that we have to use our data to support our teachers. We're expecting them to unlock 20, 35 little magical combination locks in 45 minutes with no support. We have to use our systems to support our teachers because they're willing to do the good work. They just don't have a fighting chance right now. Okay, a couple of housekeeping things. We'll be back in this room after lunch. Lunch is on the other side of that wall, so we'll go out and come back in. We have 45 minutes lunch for you to talk to your teams and debrief and decompress. If anybody needs a certificate that you attended for professional development hours or whatever, I have those that are blank and we can get you set up. I'll find somebody with better handwriting than me to fill out your certificate for you. And we'll be getting you all of these slide decks. And give me your email if you're not one of our pre-registered people. So if there's no additional questions, please go next door, have an amazing lunch, and we'll be back over here in 45 minutes.
Already? And he was correct. I was correct.
No, Chambry is good because city coming after you, the market that you're after, so it makes a lot of sense. Here, and then cheaper than the ROI is. So that, like that. In this case, this just came about. I'm not doing it. But I didn't do it this year. A little further south, but yeah, more. It's not new. Some of them may So I'm certainly running this. I think this. Yeah. This is like this. So. Oh, I don't. We were talking about. Okay, it says. Yeah, it's, yeah. Stronger. A star says it's cautious. That's the matrix. It's logging that for a year. Where is it works to like monitoring the log lines. But there isn't. They do. They have their own grading program. Illuminate in our grading. Our grading. They have it. It's separate. Yeah. And also, yeah, that's very much.
So I'm gonna do the research. I'm gonna head over there and see if I can get containers for my flour and stuff. Yeah. Oh. What's your name? Oh my God. Get all that love in it. How you been playing yourself? You know what? I started that shit.
You come here and actually projected from the yeah. See, if you something after all three projections, right, right. So there's and 10 a.m. tomorrow. Okay.
My homework, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. So you have, okay, this is the Mac. It should, this is the same one I have. Should work.
Okay, do you want me to? Okay,
You have any audio?
no, no audio.
Ah,
I'm
so
I'm providing all of the
let's
audio.
just make sure that. You wanted that dim?
Nope.
Want it nice and bright?
Sure. Yes.
Let's just make sure. Let me just check your settings. You know what? I'll just make sure that it's coming out. Right. So you're doing this from Google slideshow?
Yes.
Are you just forwarding slides?
Yep. Yep. A couple animations, slides, but yep,
And you made it in the Google.
it's all in there. Yep, made it in Google. Is it? Do you care if I'm out of the restroom?
No, no,
Am I
no,
back?
no,
Okay, thank you, thank you. I'm like, if I don't go now, I
No,
won't
that's
have a
awesome,
chance.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, that's a lot nicer.
Did you get food, or did you just sit there the whole time? Big difference. Good one. Nice to meet you.
I'm just gonna pop. Right out further. Was that one? You don't have to worry about that. Oh, no. Why?
Is there a charger up here? Would you have a decent charge? Do you have this kind of, what do you have? Do you have this? Oh, mine's gone down a ton. I'm gonna grab my charger. Yeah. Do we have an extension? Right, it always goes.
Yeah, there was one there too.
Okay, everything comes under and tell me. I either make this work all the other things. Oh, there was one right there, by the way. Yeah, can I hand it to you?
Oh, there is one over here.
Here, can I hand it right through the box here? Will it reach? If not, I can. Yeah.
And you're green.
We look at multi-characters. That's my favorite character.
Why do you say do that?
Anything that every that is actually here.
I thought it was like if he was just bringing it for Terry, and then he's like, bye.
What sections are on? See the we're trust but verify.
I'm gonna move it over on this side.
Okay.
That he has his website.
And zero insult if you like give me the like a 5-minute mark would be good.
When we started about 123 seconds.
And that guidebook's great.
Exactly what reason.
Details both how to implement the MTSS process, it's how to conduct the database.
Do you want like a crazy hint?
Like 5 left would be awesome. Yeah. 10 looks too much room for error. Like, I could really go awry in 10 minutes.
No, it's not. I will try to see. I do that. It's like this outline of what it is. No, he'd be
I guess when he would have with a name like that, it doesn't matter.
So Kate Project also gave me one of those moments where I said, maybe I just want to go back and lead a site again. I was middle school administrator for years. And when she and changing the language that we put into our performance stands to change the way that we think about our students, it completely blew my mind. In less than 5 minutes, she made me want to go back and spend the rest of my life leading PLCs to students. I would have been teachers, just so we could change the way that we talk about students. It's something that was so easy, and you absolutely blew my mind. And now I steal it from you all of the time when I'm in front of clients, and it's absolutely awesome. Kate is, how long have you been with me? Like,
15 days. No, it was February, 2 years in February.
She is absolutely changing the texture and the timbre of conversation within the organization. And I am so pleased to introduce Kate.
All right. That's the bar, library, and formative. That's where to go. Hi, I am Kate Project. I've been here for a little over 2 years with Illuminate. Let me take just a moment because there's been so much conversation this morning that I know a lot of you probably processed at lunch a little bit. But just to give us a teeny bit more process time. Oh, by the way, James and I had dinner last night too, but I don't think an educational hero was part of your description of me. Yeah, I was there too. Okay, so a little bit of process time. I loved physics in school. My dad, some of you know a little bit about my backstory, but my dad, when he was around, he would give us physics experiments to do all forms of fluids, physical machines, all sorts of physics stuff. And then I remember learning physics, I think in, I don't know, whatever the intro to physics, like 7th grade or 8th grade when they started introducing you to physics. And I remember thinking, oh, this is so much easier than when my dad taught me about it. It also doesn't make as much sense. And so they were completely ignoring air resistance and friction to help teach us the formulas of physics. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I guess this is pretty easy. Math was easy. And then I took physics, and they introduced air resistance and friction, and everything that I knew about what they had taught me didn't make sense anymore. I'm bringing that up because I feel like this morning, when I heard some of the things that Dr. Rees and Dr. Moss and Dr. Beal brought up, they are telling you that systems sometimes are structured to ignore air resistance and friction. Just pretend it's this ideal world with your perfect triangle and everything. And some of the things they said were just permission to do what we all kind of knew intuitively anyway, right? You know, you don't have a perfect triangle. You know that putting a student in a tier 2 intervention in addition to the core just because it's the number of minutes that are allocated for that student doesn't always work. So that was my takeaway from this morning. You now have permission from experts, I'm not one of them, but they are. Permission to do some of the things that you already knew were things you should be doing anyway. Priority standards. Maybe not having a perfectly mathematically checkbox out RTI system. Some of those things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, if we're talking tiers, the big heavy lift tier of the school system is tier 1. Right? And the use of data within tier 1 within core instruction. And truthfully, I'm not going to try to hide this. I work with Illuminate because it's the, I don't work for ed tech reasons, in case you couldn't tell by the way I was trying to get everything hooked up over here. Yeah, I'm a little tech light, but I'm ed heavy, and it is truthfully an educational company, and I saw potential for it. I used it as a user in the district. Minneapolis Public was the district that I was working in at the time. I saw potential for it that I didn't see in any other platform. I wanted to be a part of Illuminate because it has potential to make huge changes in the lives of kids. And when I talk to districts, and anybody who's heard me talk, you know I say this and I mean it. You can actually change the lives of kids using a platform like this because it lets you do the things that you know that you should do for students. It doesn't stick you in a box. So let's look a little bit at
have Illuminate, so the piece that I don't want to be shy about is I'm going to show you some of Illuminate now and some of what it can do if you don't use it, and maybe some of what it can do if you do use it. So, this quote stuck with me a long, long time ago when I first heard it. We cannot intervene our way out of. So think about intricate tier 2 and tier 3 systems with all of you. You have, like, it is a thing of beauty on paper, where you have all of your interventions listed out for tier 3. You know exactly how many times that student is supposed to be the interventionist based on the number of minutes that you can allocate. You have it all worked out, and it's not working. Because the tier 1 has led you to, if we're going to talk triangles, it's more like an ice cream cone, right? That upside down situation. So this is how can you use data to actually change that. So here are the 4 essential questions guiding instruction. I don't think there's a school district around that doesn't talk about these 4 questions in some way. What do we want students to learn? How do we know if they've learned? What do we do if they didn't? And what do we do if they already knew? So that's nothing brand new to most people. I'm going to put this up here for a minute because this is what I feel like we've told people for a long time is the PLC recipe. Here it is. So here's the recipe. This is nobody's. It's like me for this big goofy thing, and probably everybody else I've ever heard talk about assessment. Read ingredient number 1 there. I'm going to read it out loud to you and read the whole thing, just so you can soak it in. All right. A standards aligned, valid, reliable, common assessment in a PLC common. With questions proportionate and BOK to state assessment, with well thought out distractors tied to common student misconceptions, with performance tasks tied to rubrics that have clearly articulated benefits of student work at each level of proficiency, that is a good predictor of and highly correlated to success on the state assessment. Reading number 1. Right? Have you heard any of these things before about what a good assessment in the classroom is? The fact that none of you are laughing is scaring me. Either you're in a lunch slumber or I'm worried you're in a zombie state. Okay. Number 2, actionable data from that assessment, time and space for teachers to meet and talk. Teachers instructed to capitalize on collective wisdom, and then all students are college and career ready and proficient. Okay. This is a little bit of my rethink, using the tools that you can use in Illuminate. And a lot of this was reiterated this morning. Perfect is the enemy of progress sometimes. Yes, that first assessment that you saw there is beautiful and amazing, and how much time we spend making it rather than doing anything about the data. That's how every assessment happens. So here, standard line comp assessment, with focused data from that assessment made actionable through some questions that require action. So when James talks about high performance managers, we're going to talk about a little bit. And this is going to rub probably lots of people that are wrong way, but I don't think data should be there to answer questions and you stop there. I think data should be there to drive action after you do the analysis. If you don't get to action, you talk about like admiring the problem, you just keep analyzing and analyzing. So I think you should get to action. And I think people need to be supported in getting there. Okay, time and space for teachers to plan for action based on the report. And teachers, this is the most important one. Teachers be feeling confident that they know, I don't even say a next right step for students. Not that they have, come to world peace where they've, found the cure for cancer, but they know the next right step or a next right step for students. So right here, I'm sure you've all seen this before. What do we want students to learn? How do we know if they learned it? And then, what do we do if they don't? What do we do if they do? Like, we kind of leave it a little bit cloudier. Like, but then some cool miracle happens, and because we have PLCs, everything's fixed. So, bridging the gap. So the first slide I had bridge on it. Bridging the gap. Bridging the gap between data to information. Who has a lot of data? Who's got some data going on in their district? Who's got the crazy data? Like, oh, the problem. We have a lot of problems, so the solution is data. Let's just get some data, make it data-driven. Drive some data, put it on a bus with data, get a lot of data, drive that around. And then you don't necessarily ever get to the point where you have information, where you're gaining something valuable from that data. And if you do,
hallelujah. But it actually doesn't matter until you get to action. You have to get to action from that data. This work is way too important to just simply answer questions with data. You need to get to the action. So this is sort of tongue-in-cheek. I apologize if I'm insulting anybody. Okay, two kinds of teachers. This is without Illuminate, because Illuminate the heavens to the heart in each way. Two kinds of teachers. First kind of teacher, teacher A. How many of you have been that teacher, seen that teacher, watched the teacher who, after they give assessment, truthfully, I'm not kidding, they draw these, they used to draw paper with tag marks and cut out with scissors, but now we've got Google Sheets. They have every standard, which student has answered this question correctly, aligned with this standard, and now that turns into green, and they have Google Sheets that talk to Google Sheets. They've become computer programmers. How many of you have seen teachers like that? Okay, they spend a lot of time gathering, which is amazing, by the way. That's not to take away from what they're doing. Gathering and analyzing data, and then there's no time left. Then the next test comes. Just after you finish your own spreadsheet, you're not ready to start another one. So, teachers that analyze data and don't have time to answer, those that don't. Neither is really perfectly ideal. It would actually be nice, and this is a quote from, so a couple of you guys know, Matt Fortner, who is the director of teaching in various Washington County schools in Minnesota. This is his quote about Illuminate. He said we need to take the complication out of the calculations so we can have complicated conversations about our students. Everything you heard this morning, particularly from Dr. Knopf, is that we can't just checklist this thing. What we need to do with students is actually pretty clear. Doing it is pretty complicated because, unfortunately, they're humans. If they were just little machines, this would be a pretty easy thing to do. But if we can have data and a data system sort of take the complication out of the calculation part of this, you need to get to the conversation so you figure out what you need to do next for those students. So who's seen this before? Who has seen this particular graph before? The sales team has all seen this graph before. This is the overall performance report that comes out of Illuminate. This is what I want to emphasize about. We'll talk a little bit more about what it does and how it does it. This is the thing. Guess how a teacher creates this particular graph? They don't do anything. The student takes the assessment. When they click on the title of the assessment, this is the graph that pops up. Okay. Don't get lost in that one. That's actually a really big deal. They don't build it. The system builds it after a student takes an assessment. I'm going to buzz through a few more that the system builds as soon as a student answers a question within Illuminate for an assessment that's been delivered. Here's another one, standard summary report. This shows this particular test had 4 standards. Light blue is the percent of students that didn't master, dark blue is did. And by the way, if you click on any one of those sections, you populates a list of student names of who did and didn't master the standard. Subgroup achievement gap report. Any of you have an achievement gap? You know the Midwest makes an achievement gap, like it's going out of business. Minneapolis Public Schools and Milwaukee Public Schools, back and forth every year for largest achievement gap, not in the Midwest, in the entire United States of America. We can make a gap in the Midwest. This report is there so that you can analyze that gap after each assessment. Okay. Response frequency report. I'm just going to give you a second to look at this report. I love this report. This is a good report. This shows the lowest performing question on one end up to the highest performing. And if they're multiple choice, and not all tests are multiple choice, nor should they be, but multiple choice isn't in here we have. It shows how many students answered. It's your item analysis. How many students answered each piece. Who do you think you should be showing this report to if we're under the theory that teachers would get better if they understood what students didn't understand? Who should you be showing this report to if you're a classroom teacher after you've given this assessment? Kids. Kids, if assessment really is for learning, we should use the assessment for learning, right? If assessment's for learning. And in fact, the people that really need to be doing the learning from the data on assessment is the teacher and the student. Okay. This looks very close to that Google Doc version that was created, or that Google Sheets version. This is called the matrix report. How I almost clicked it with you guys that were doing that. I think this is how I almost clicked on the report in the system. So what you get out of this is every student that took the assessment is a row. Every question on the assessment is a column. You can turn on a standards feature so it lumps the questions together that go with different standards. So how they perform on a standard. They got a question wrong, it's red, and it tells you how they answered that question. That is a ton of information. If in your PLCs, your teachers are spending their time making something like this, think about the minutes and the time that takes away from what they could be doing in terms of responding to the data. Okay. The much controversial pivot table. Pivot table, the words do one of three things to human beings. I am afraid. It sounds mathy, it sounds like I don't really like it, or never heard of it, or I freaking love a pivot table. What is it? How many people want number 3? I freaking love a pivot table. What? Like 7 people. Okay, alright. What is a pivot table intended to do in this particular? By the way, this is I'm sorry, I should be standing right here. Okay. Pre-assessment, post-assessment. How many students fell in performance band level? Red, yellow, green. So these 12 students were 4, for example. And then how many students fell in each level of post-assessment with the joy and pivot? What has happened to all those students who are in that red area on the pivot table? Look at their you drop down, you see their pre-assessment score. You go over, you see your post-assessment score. What's happened to all those students in the red? I have wait time forever. What happened to those students? What happened to those 4 students in that pinkish line right there? What did they score on the pre-assessment? If you draw straight down, you'll see their pre-assessment score. They scored a 4, right? And then they scored a 3. They scored higher on the pre-assessment. So what's happened to all those students in that red area? They've declined. Worst example of pivot table probably ever, by the way. But it's all fake data. Put it there. What about the white? What about the white? What happened to the white? They stayed the same. Right, if they were 4, they're still a 4. They were 3, they're still a 3. What about the green? They grew. What is this table measuring? Growth. Guess what we call growth in schools? Let's not even quite a sheet. Let's just keep it a little simpler than that. What do you call growth in schools? Learning. You call it learning. So if you make a pivot table, I don't know what you want to look at learning. Like it's really great. This thing is amazing. Okay, imagine how this could be used in a PLC conversation. So how do you take information then? Because in Illuminate, it's really quick and easy to get some information, right? You can tell a lot from each of those and move it into action. First of all, this piece I want to bring up because I talk a lot about the why in the next few slides. When addressing the why, when I mean why did the student not achieve? Why did the student decline? Why did the student show monstrous growth? It's really imperative that you look at all the contributing factors, and you know how hard this is to do, especially in a PLC of your peers. Looking at curriculum, and I put it in this order on purpose. It would be great if people could go in this order when we're looking at the why. Why didn't things work? What was it about instruction that didn't work? What was it about the curriculum that may not have worked or did work? What is it about that learner's environment? And then jump to the end, what is it about the learner? Where do most PLC conversations go when we get to the point where you've done the data? You figure out what it didn't work for. Where do the conversations go next, typically? Learner. Learner. Well,
First of all, we like to look for a label, like that student, well, this student is labeled this or that, or this is what their home life looks like, or this is what that. It kind of, to me, truthfully, I mean, I don't care. It doesn't matter. The point is, there are members who are underserved. What can we do to influence the fact that they're underserved? To say we can't do anything would be like, that would be the most depressing thing in the world. Of course we can do things. So, what I have done here, really quickly, and I'm not going to go through every detail of these, but what I have done is I have here a couple of questions. If you want people to do a specific something with a set of data, help guide them in doing that specific something you want them to do. So the intention here is that the first question is where you spend 20% of your time analyzing the data. It's really for 80% of your time, coming up with an action plan based on that data. So if you look right here, and I'm going to have you all do something, you're going to vote on which of these graphs you would use first if you had to help support a PLC, if you had to choose one. So we have a little bit of attention here, I'm going to do a quick little survey poll, and you talk about it for a second. So, what's the performance breakdown you expected? One question would you then always insert after that first question is why? Why do you think that? And then what action will you take with each subgroup that's differentiated to the needs of the group? I'm not lying when I say there are a couple school districts I work in. This is red every time. The whole circle is red. They call it their donut of depression. So they would pull up this graph, it didn't matter which subject area, which grade level, red, 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 red. If that were your district, what question would you ask next about this particular set of data? If everything's red, every graph, every subject area, every area, what would you ask next?
The answer key, right?
Okay, good, good. Yeah, but all subject areas and all grade levels would be unlimited. The answer key would be completely wrong. It's different tests. I didn't say that part. All different tests. It didn't matter which group of students at your school, red. Nope, all different assessments. Different content areas, different grade levels, and I'm not making this up, it's really happening. Red, 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 red. This was my question. What performance band did you apply to this particular set of data? Where's your cut score for red? Anyone want to guess where the cut score for red was? Their performance band, 90, 80, 70, 60, and below is red. Okay. Does that performance band sound like it came from somewhere? Where do you get a 90, 80, 70, 60, and below is red? Grades. What do you think that performance band was graded for? Evaluation, not support of students, and not really student learning. If this is graded for differentiation, what kind of differentiation are you doing if the whole thing is red? And I asked them, is a 0% student the same as a 60% student? No. Well, then where do you want to put those cut scores so that you're putting students together who might have similar needs? And then they put different cut scores on them. Guess how they labeled that? They went from a label of not proficient, proficient, whatever the traditional labels are. Guess what they changed their labels to? This was kind of radical, because this did something to the school district. Most underserved, underserved, least underserved. Let that soak in for just a moment. It was about how, not necessarily about, that they had labels of deficiency. Okay, I'm going to buzz through a couple more, and then I want you to tell me which of these you think would be the one that you would start with in your school district, because you're all leaders of school districts in some way. This one, here are a few questions that you. Is the proficiency breakdown what you expected, mastered versus not mastered? I love this one because I will tell you in particular, in Minneapolis Public Schools, we have thought about this before. You want to talk about cultural competence, you want to build equity in, there are so many places to do in this platform. With reflection, where the questions you chose the best platform to allow students to demonstrate proficiency in these standards. People started to think, well, I don't know, this is a question I always ask. How many opportunities are we giving students the opportunity to demonstrate proficiency? Okay, here's the next one.
Has anyone ever heard, and I know the states and they vary in terms of their adherence to compliance, where compliance drives everything. Has anyone ever heard this test is really a great predictor of the state assessment results? Who's heard that in your district before? How do people say that? With great excitement. This is a great predictor of state assessment results. Guess what your job is to do? Interrupt the predictability of the state assessment results. Otherwise, guess what? You all win the lottery if we're just about predicting the state assessment results. Guess where you would look? Like last year's state assessment results, right? The state assessment becomes a good predictor of the state assessment. It's about interrupting the predictability of achievement. I have another school district who used only this report. Every single time they gave a test, their achievement gap was the biggest I had ever seen. And when they had to come up with the question, what are you going to do to interrupt the predictability for the students on the losing end of this? I said, I don't know. I've never really thought about it before. Thinking about it is a good first step. They came up with interventions, and their gap, I'm not kidding, their gap started to close. It was the only report that they looked at as this report. And it's not because they were squashing the ceiling. This one. For your worst performing questions, which distractors were the most distracting? Why? How are you going to respond? Because it's a 9 analysis. That's a great question to ask. That's a great question to ask students. You want to talk about assessment for learning, really. Give an assessment, have students come back and explain to you, and sometimes even students that got it right. The student got it right. Explain to me why you think some students in the class may have chosen D. You want to get students to get really nimble and think about metacognition. Have them answer some of these questions. Okay. Boy, these are rocket science questions I put up here. Which are your most red rose? Why? How will you respond? How many people get to this point with the data for crunching all their own numbers? Those are not complex questions. They can lead to amazing things for kids that people could spend their time on. Which are your most red columns? Why? How will you respond? Okay, last one. Which students grew the most? Why? How will you respond? Which students grew the least or declined the most? You take a student who scores a 4 on a pre-assessment for performance level 4, and then they score a 1 on a post-assessment. That happens, right? That happened with a student before. They score a 4, and then they score a 1. Did you eradicate all the learning from their head in those 3 weeks of instruction? You've erased their minds, what they used to know, they know no more. No, what is going on with a student who scores a 4, and then they score a 1, most likely? There's probably some form of disengagement going on with that student, at least on the day they took that test. Does it mean you should don't worry about it, it was just disengagement? No, it tells you what the next, maybe next best step might be from that data. Okay, so at your tables, just take literally like 1 minute. If you have to choose one of these, I'm actually going to call on some of your tables, so you have to come up with something. Okay, pretend you're the PLC. Which one graph would you choose?
Can you read that? I have no idea what the data is. To me, the bubble graph is the easiest reason. I mean, from here.
Give me a couple seconds.
I can't tell.
All right. Raise your hand if you're willing to share for your table which you chose, but guess what I'm going to ask you next? Why? Okay. So which one did you choose and why? If you had to choose, and I'm not saying you should choose for your whole district, you should say everybody has to use this one. But by the way, I should use the 23 pre-built reports that build the second student answers in assessment, I showed you 6 of them. Nobody ever wanted 23 pre-built reports to pop up on the screen. So I think narrowing it is good. Which one would you choose if you had to choose one? I can call on people or just make my job easier. So standing up on the stage after Dr. Reeves and Dr. Knopf and Dr. Bagel, having a little sympathy. Okay.
If I'm using the 4 PLC kind of questions, I would go into response frequency. So I'll take a look at both. Any other being sort of like standard read, you kind of get a loop around the test, so when you want to learn, and it also allows you to roll out and see who got it and didn't, and other
Love that. Love that. Over here. One more reason I love this one, I think this could be the most interactive report with students. Which guess whose learning it is? It's theirs.
I like the one that had the questions about columns and rows. Yes, that. For me, with MTSS, we have our gaps the same. We have similar columns, but even across grade levels, being able to say, are those columns in certain standards similar? Are we missing consistency?
What's your position in your district?
I'm the instructional technology specialist.
Instructional technology specialist. Okay. So you're looking with that district lens about who else should be looking with the district lens from grade level to grade level to grade level about what happens. The teachers in the classroom actually should. That should be data that they also get. I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? This is my fave. Can't believe no one picked it. Okay. Yeah, please.
And we talked about how we use this to figure out students and we also figure out the benefits of our teaching strategies if content or program that we're using to teach you or
Very nice. And how many of you are standards-based, standards aligned, standards something? Everyone's somewhere on that path, right? Focusing on standards. Yeah?
Sorry.
Oh, do you have an answer? Oh, yeah.
Okay, I like standard performance, but I like that cognitive dissonance that happens when somebody says, but I taught this standard. And then I always want to say, to what depth of knowledge did you teach that standard? Because if your items are across all ranges and you only DOK one, then all of a sudden you're showing it's not mastered. So it makes sense to think about that knowledge too.
Here's another thing I love about that. When you look at that first standard, that first standard is nowhere near master. This is a real one from a real district. I said, well, let's look at that standard. They said, well, we only asked one question, and it was a true or false question. Then why are we using it to determine the student's final grade? I mean, they were treating these like serious grades. If you're not even willing to stand behind it, how can you put that on the student's back? So, which, by the way, it's okay. Just don't use it to evaluate the student and put a label on the student's head because you have one question that was true false. But it's okay. This is nothing about blame and shame. This is about recognizing where you're at, saying, okay, this is where I am, and I'm not going to stay here, I'm going to take a step. Okay. Really quickly, I want to show you a couple of other, I just want to show you a couple of other formative tools within Illuminate that you could use in the classroom. This one only has one student response, but this is live proctoring. You want to talk about assessment is learning. You're actually on your screen as a teacher watching each answer that the student gives while they're taking that assessment online. While they're giving it, you have the power to pause the assessment. You have the power to have a conversation with your students in the moment because you see everybody's on track on this question. If it's a constructive response question, you see them typing their answers right in around the screen. Okay, that is a pretty powerful tool. That's not waiting for instant feedback after the assessment's even over. You're giving feedback while they're taking the assessment. You want to change the student's growth mindset? Start doing this, where it is not about the grade. They completely, absolutely understand it's not about the grade when it's not about the grade. When it's actually about the learning, they get it. exit tickets, pre-assessment. So Dr. Balo referenced that we have something called on the fly, quick, in the moment, formative assessment for students. How many of you have a practice of exit tickets in your district? Some kind of exit ticket practice. I think exit tickets are amazing, except it's when they exit. That's actually the piece of it I don't super love, because it depends on teachers having to do something from the time the students leave the classroom till the time they come back in. I actually like using it more for the beginning of instruction. Here's a one-question multiple choice. Which of these 4 thesis statements do you think is the best thesis statement? Students go in, they take it on the fly, you get the data right on the screen. None of them is the right answer. And then you have a conversation. Like, it looks like half of you chose B. What evidence of a good thesis statement do you see in B? They have that conversation. Students are actually learning from each other about the assessment itself. Okay? Which of the following methods of multiplying 27 times 7 is the most efficient? And you show them 4 methods, and they all put their answer in, and you have a conversation. Well, I chose modeling because I can conceal what I know. Okay, great. I chose partial products because blah, blah, blah. All right. So I want to show you a couple other things that you can do within the Illuminate system. Other than giving standards-based assessments, getting all those reports at your fingertips, having conversations with teachers and students about learning. Here are a couple of other things I just wanted to weave in. I don't work for Illuminate. I actually don't care about sales at all. And it would be very clear that I do not work for the sales team because I don't care. I want people to use Illuminate because it absolutely is, this is the thing. You can make the lives of students great, work can be great, but if it's not a little bit easier, nobody's going to do it. So we like to make it easier for the teachers to get to the goodness for the students. So right here, if you started in the top left corner during the Illuminate by creating a standards collection out of your priority standards, then you have permission to what we knew was the only thing that was possible anyway. And then you create a standards-based assessment reports that feed directly into the push of a button, the standards-based curriculum, that feed directly and auto-populate a standards-based report card. And when you get to grading day, people are like, what's grading day for? What grading day is? Because the whole time you were assessing students, it was populating free. How much work did the teacher do there? They created the assessment. The rest, autofill. This is what a student sees from a student's perspective. How many of you have a summer school program, something going on for summer school for remediation in your district? What do they do there? They spend usually the whole summer school trying to figure out what the student knows and doesn't know when the summer is over. In Illuminate, each student has a profile page with a standards story going on, it's a standards widget. If the summer school teacher opens up the student's profile page, they see which standard, how many times the students can assess on a standard, which by the way is doable if you have priority standards. It's not something after everything in the book. Whether they're trending up or down, whether they were below the mean or above the mean on that assessment, how far below or above. So in the summer, they pull this up and they're like, oh. So all those transitions that have chopped off the students' learning in the past can sort of, you can keep that thread. Customer report. You want to pull together absences, referrals, behaviors, math proficiency into one report, apply a calculation to see whether your students are on track or off track or not. That's great. But let's think about what we heard here today. Knowing why is just as important. If you look here, you can see this is a student that's off track, but they were only in school half of the time, for example. Okay. So here's one more thing. I'm going to blow your mind a little bit with this, and then I'm going to stop there. Everything that we just talked about, let's look here one more time. Let's start here. Standards collections, standards-based assessments with reports, standards-based gradebook, standards-based report card, actually doesn't have to be academic. You could have one for academics. There's nothing up there that would stop you from doing the same thing for social emotional learning. The tool is flexible. You do what you want with it. You bring those standards in. You create those assessments, even for quick assessments. The auto-populated gradebook report card. You actually know where your students are progressing with those skills too.
It makes it easier, and then it makes it better. If you don't have the easier, you don't always get to the better. That's why I work for Illuminate. It's not for the ed tech. Did you all catch on to that? It's not the ed tech piece. You actually can change the lives of kids and have something consistent. When there's not a lot of consistency as they go through the school system, this pulls it all together. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you.
Kate, thank you very much. Probably listen to you talk for the next 4 hours. Like the entire time. Why don't we take like 3 minutes? We'll do a little text walk out in your training, and we'll give recommendations for the rest of around for lunch. I'll come back together in 184 seconds, and then we're ready to go.
Boy, how much language differentiate your kids based on skills when you really need to.
Yeah. Because you're actually going to be like driving and demoing. Yes, let's do. So this is the line. Okay, have you guys heard the term warrior monk? Maybe you might have like a warrior monk in your life, that person who's completely zen and completely grounded, and they know who they are, and they know what they're capable of, and they care about 30 seconds. Take out a room if necessary. And that's my warrior monk, and it's Jane. This is somebody who I want to be right now. She knows what her mission is, and her mission is to change the world. And it's totally fine if you're not a warrior. She will move past you, or she will take you out the process. It is amazing. And it's loving and respectful. but it's going to happen. She's going to change the world. And those of us who are really lucky on the inside just get to grab up her and learn from her and just try to help as much as we can. It is a pleasure to introduce my newest favorite hero who joined Illuminate, James.
No. There we go. Thank you, James. Like, I feel like the same is true for you. And Kate. I mean, like, Kate's pretty awesome too, and just how energetic she is when she talks. I just, so many awesome people that I would be like, is it Madison School District? Are you guys still here?
We are here, but he doesn't.
You left.
No, he's doing that.
Oh, okay. Nick's pretty up there for me too, so.
He's gonna be really wrong that he wasn't in here.
So I'm Jane Harris. I am a practicing school psychologist, and I work in a small district in southern Wisconsin. And I worked for 10 years as the only school psychologist in a small district of about 900 students, where I was able to help support and create a really effective multi-tiered system of supports. And so in the practice and opportunity I had in the district, and being able to kind of have my feet in a lot of different areas, I had the ability to do some curriculum instruction work, special education, kind of director role. So my experiences are pretty big. But in that, I found that we didn't have a tool that I needed so that I could get back to working with kids. So I became a school psychologist because when I was in high school at 17, I met a school psychologist, and I felt like he changed and actually saved my life. And so I was out of it to help support kids. And when I got into the district, I realized that that wasn't what I was doing. I wasn't helping kids. Maybe at an indirect level, but still I was spending way too much time on other stuff that just didn't matter. So my goal was to change that. And I think that if all of us as teachers, as educators, can give ourselves the permission to just take a step back and remember always why we're in this game. We're being asked to do way more right now. Kids are coming to school with trauma, with lack of experience, vocabulary, just the needs that countered with accountability and everything. There's just a lot on our plates. So always give yourself the permission to take that step back and remember why you're in this game of helping support kids. So when I did that, I started to realize that the tools that we have were really, really ineffective. So it's cool. But when that happened for me, my husband started creating this program called EduClimber. And I had a couple of school districts in the area that said, hey, Jamie, go buy this. And I was like, that's weird. Why would anyone want to buy what we're creating? And they did. And then it grew from being just something that a couple districts in my area wanted to use to being something that we had in 15 states in just, I think it was under 4 years, that we moved from being nothing to being a huge product. And so for me, it's really exciting to be able to now be partnered and working with Illuminate and all the fantastic people there to see what we can do. At the end of this year, I'm going to be stepping down to fulfill my vision, which is to save the world, to change the world, and to be able to provide tools to educators so that you can do the amazing work that needs to be done. But we need to stop spending so much time on the complicated calculations. Was that your slide? Okay. We need to get back to working with kids and being able to have the tools and technology and being able to access the information we need as quickly as we can. So I'm just going to take you through basically some of my ideas of best practice. My clicker's not working. Okay. So when we think about multi-tiered system of supports, we're really wanting to do some really critical pieces. And when I'm talking about a multi-tiered system of supports, I'm thinking academics, behavior, and social emotional, so the mental health needs of students. And there are some indicators and some data sources that we can use to certainly analyze these data sources. So when we start thinking about, and as I'm going through this, think about being able to analyze all data sources related to academics, behavior, and social emotional. So we try really hard to be able to give the ability to analyze the effectiveness of the universal form instruction right from the get-go, because we don't want to do, as Dr. Long had mentioned, we don't just need to give tier 2 interventions to everybody. It's not effective. So I'll kind of walk you through how we do that. Interventions should be evidence-based and be able to be implemented very easily. Our screening data should be valid and reliable. And we need to also understand what the purpose is of the assessment we're giving. Is it truly a screener? Is it a benchmark assessment? Is it a proficiency measure? What's the purpose of the assessment we're giving? And with that, we should be asking different questions, types of questions about that data, which then should lead to you asking more questions, which does then affect the actions and the things we're doing on a daily basis. Your systems should be collaborative, and you want to make sure that they're very data informed. Your tools for progress monitoring, whether it's academic or behavioral, even for attendance. For attendance should be data should be valid and reliable. And it should be quick. And then we also want to make sure that we're delivering these interventions with fidelity, and we've got the ability to document this. There's a line ahead. It's a little weird. Slide. Okay. So the questions that we should be thinking about are proficiency. So your proficiency data can be different things, but when we're thinking about academics, we're wanting to make sure that the proficiency measure somehow links to some larger scale assessment. So being proficient in the skill is different than the data that we get from screeners. So the screening tool is really designed to identify whether students are at risk. But often what I see people doing is they use that screening data and think that that's giving us the same information as a proficiency measure. So you can change in our system in Planner, you can change that question really quickly to be able to mirror the screening data to be more related to a proficiency measure. So we do that using correlation coefficients. That's like something that people that we really love data tend to do, but you can easily identify what is the correlation between these two measures. We also want to make sure that we focus on growth and on closing the gaps. Do you do it? So I'll just be very just gonna keep in mind here. Awesome. So how quickly can you answer these questions in the data source or system that you're currently using? So typically, this is something that you should do at least once a year. But if you have a system that can do it really quickly for you, at least 3 times a year. So when you start thinking about your data, you kind of want to start by analyzing the screening data first. From the lens of what percentage of my students are not at risk. So if you have greater than 20% of students being at risk, that's not a student problem. That's a system problem. Not to say that you as teachers and what you have going on in your school isn't effective, but it's that the students that are coming in are different. And so we have to give ourselves the okay to be cognizant that students are changing. Things at home are changing. So we need to change as teachers to be able to support those students. So if your screening data indicates that you don't have 78% of your students who are not at risk, you need to change your core instruction. And your focus, your annual goal, should really be focused on that screening data.
Then you can give yourself the okay to move into proficiency. Talking about how many of our kids are proficient or not proficient on a skill. Again, proficiency is different than saying it isn't at risk. You guys understand? Does that make sense to anybody? Okay. So then we go to move into growth. So what percentage of our students are making adequate growth? Then you want to start thinking about your trend data. So thinking about, is this a trend over, just with this particular grade level? Or is this a trend that we're seeing with this particular group of students? So you should be able to answer these questions within 4 minutes, in my opinion. Shouldn't take you any longer than that. And as a team, to be able to sit at the table and to have this conversation could lead to some amazing changes in your system. And I've been part of that in my opportunities in districts. This is a typical process that I recommend that districts use. And this would be really good for your data retreat, so your summer annual kind of retreat. But you really want to make sure that if you're analyzing and identifying those trends, you start at the district level, then you move into particular grades, then you look at analyzing differences across schools for some of those larger districts. In my little districts that I worked in, we looked at 1 or 2 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. But then you also look at classes. Now, when you're doing this, one thing that I'd like to point out is that we in education are problem solvers. We want to find a solution to every problem as quickly as we can. And sometimes we focus so much on the negative things that are happening that we overlook the amazing work that's being done. So instead of always just focusing on closing that gap or identifying the problem, let's talk about and identify what is working at certain grade levels. So don't just look at the bad things on this top chart. When you're looking at it, make sure you're thinking about what is working and how can you replicate that. That's not only good practice and it leads to more ability for people to coach each other, to effective mentoring, but it also just increases the morale of the building typically. So just some things to be thinking about. You then want to start by disaggregating your data and comparing it across different groups. In our system, we have these things that are called tags and Illuminate student groups. And when you are able to use those really quick shortcuts to identify different populations of students, you'll be able to identify and analyze the effectiveness of the interventions that you have in place in your schools. So we, in my school, have tagged kids as having successfully exited LLI. How many kids do we have that are currently in LLI, and how many kids that have not successfully exited LLI? So 3 different ways to tag kids so that I can filter my data and be able to see, are these things that I'm implementing on a daily basis, is it worth it? Is it working? And how often or how much of the time are these students then maintaining that growth year after year? This is my caution to everybody. We kind of talked about it a little bit, the whole data bridge information for grip. With that, we tend to think like, yes, we have data, and I love my data, and I love getting tests, but sometimes we don't even know why we're getting the tests that we're getting. Think about the amount of time that we're spending assessing kids that we're not spending teaching kids. Looking at the problem doesn't solve the problem. So the other thing is, like, if you could ask your staff, this is an activity we actually have done in some districts, if they can outline all of the tests that they give and why they're giving it. And how much time are they spending giving the test, scoring the test. And what does that lead to? Is that making any difference? So in Edufinder, one of the things that, like, my goal is to make it as easy as possible. So it's a GIF or GIF. There's an argument about whether it's GIF or GIF. My husband swears it's a GIF. Anyways, so this is confusing, I apologize, but what this shows you is that right within the system, you can go in and we'll look back here. You can drill down into these data. You've got academic data, you've got social emotional screening data, attendance data, and behavior data, all on one chart, basically, in one dashboard. Across these, you can easily generate correlation coefficients to see the relationship with our students who are getting suspended and how often are they, what do their grades look like, what is their mastery measure, how many of the students have mastered certain skills. So are these the students who are not proficient students on the state exam? And same thing with behavioral incidents. You can drill down into our system to be able to quickly identify trends, to be able to create those precision problem statements. So this isn't just like data that's stored behind a wall. This is stuff you can actually dig into and easily manipulate. My next one that I'm going to show you here is you click on a chart, you can see the students and their scores, and you can see how many of the students who are red at the beginning of the year are still red. So this leads us to the next part of is what we're doing on a daily basis working. If we're doing interventions with these students, how many of them are closing the gaps on those large scale assessments? So all of this stuff is just available out of the box in our system. When we think about interventions, again, academic, behavioral, you tend to have a certain process and procedure which consists of identifying the student need, creating a plan, implementing the plan, collecting data, and analyzing the progress of that student. So one thing that I have been kind of determined to do, and maybe it was because I was the person who was always responsible for filling out the forms and for collecting the data, it drove me crazy how much time I was spending on just documentation and what difference does that mean kind of thing. So in our system, everything that we do, if you decide to end the student's plan, it's immediately going to document that information for you and you can have it all go onto a form that you can print out, you can share with another district, if you need your district. So all of the stuff that you can do in our system, I try to make it very smartly so that it will all be linked together and it all leads back down to the student level. The system also allows you, and in your systems, you should be thinking about the responsiveness, not just of one student in an intervention, but again, of a group of students in an intervention. You want to also think about how many kids do we have that are getting intervention services? And then what's the effectiveness of those interventions on larger scale assessments? Because there's a difference between a student responding to intervention, making growth, to actually changing the student's skills and enhancing their skills, closing the gap. So there's two different ways that you should really be analyzing your data when it comes to analyzing students' progress monitoring data. And again, this is for academic or behavior. Our system is created to be able to really quickly to see what's going on in your district. So we do districts to identify which students get what levels of support, and then show you at the top here is the on-track by strategy. So this is showing you of the kids that are in your district, how many of them are responding to that intervention. So I can see the green here on the top for supported close procedure, and the number of students who are not responding. And this is based on the progress monitoring, the goal that we set for students. So we did this in my district. We can go to the next slide. Yeah. So we did this in my district that I'm currently in. Using that chart, what we found is that we had 80% of our students who were not responding to intervention. And we had teachers who were like, we need to refer this student for special education. And I was like, no, we need to change what we're doing. And so in our system, we have these things called smart cards, and there's ways to document different things and pull in fields from all over the system. But this is something that I created for my district that kind of guides us through this process. So we identified that we had directions going on. But then I said, okay, let's see, how many students do we actually have with interventions? What percentage of those students are responding to interventions? And again, responding doesn't mean that they're actually closing the gap either. So that's another lens which we analyze your data. So then we listed out strategy by strategy, interventionist by interventionist, and identified we had an ineffective interventionist. And that's not to say she wasn't working hard or doing, trying her best, but she didn't have the tools or the training that she needed to effectively do her job. So it led us to identify that she needed some professional development, and we did implement some changes, and things are going better now. But without that process, this would have gone on for how long? So this was to me an amazing opportunity, and it's something that I do think that districts need to give yourself the okay to do this. We do this every 9 weeks. Comes out to like 4 times a year, I think. And so this is a really good process. And again, to me, if you don't have 70% of your students being on track in intervention, either maybe setting too hard goals, or we want to make sure that kids are closing, their gaps are closing. So this is a good process for you to go through. Another thing is, how easy is it for you to triangulate your data? So we have these things right in the box that are called data walls. So looking at different assessments that you likely give and having the scores side by side. Alongside here, you can see that these are tags. So I actually had a system creating these things called thresholds. So we went through and identified every student whose reading fluency score was below 93%. And it automatically tagged those students and so that they had an inaccurate score on their reading fluency. So that way, when I'm analyzing, these are the kids who are below the screening level, they're at risk for reading failure. I can see which ones actually have a decoding problem. The students who are inaccurate and not fluent, they don't need a fluency intervention, they need a decoding intervention. So that's like sort of a diagnostic tool, a way that you can use your screening in a diagnostic way. So from there, all I do is click, check the boxes, and it creates the intervention plan. I go through and say, who's doing what, when are we doing it, how are we collecting the data, and when are we going to sit back down and talk about whether or not this is working. So all of that's done right within the system. The other thing, then, let's say you've got interventions going on, how easy is it for you and your whole team to see what's going on and if students are responding? So this is like the intervention plan view in our system. It includes the summary, it includes a plan document, gives you the ability to add a plan, to view the progress monitoring data, to view any comments specific to that intervention, and to generate various reports right out of the box. Here, though, is where this makes me super giddy, and I use this probably 3 times a week in my school. So we have, most of my time comes out with a kid, which now I'm spending probably 70% of my time actually working with kids, which is amazing. The other times that I'm not with kids, I'm in meetings. And so I was like, we spend a lot of times in meetings. We should have some sort of feature called meetings where this work is done for you. So we have the, one thing I do recommend that schools do is that every 6 weeks, create intervention analysis meetings where you can sit down and go kid by kid for 2 minutes. The max is 2 minutes on a kid to make a decision whether you're going to continue the plan, change the plan, or end the plan. So right here in our system, all I have to do is go through and tag which kids are going to be at this meeting on this day, and you'll see here that the students' names come up, and I can click on that student, I can see their progress monitoring data, And I can say, I'm gonna end it, change it, or continue. When you do that, it brings up, why are you doing this? Madison, Nick, what you're gonna do, Matt's almost done with it, but you can click the button that says that the student exited successfully or not. So a reason about that, so that you can do, again, more analysis with it. So that'll be coming this summer. And all of that data is documented automatically. But I do recommend, how many of you guys are doing that right now? Some sort of intervention and analysis meeting. Okay. This is something that you guys think would be beneficial. We used to spend like days, kid by kid, and we would talk about how Johnny's mom, who lives down the street from Ed, and that's just like all the drama about kids, which is important, great stuff. But when we're trying to make decisions about kids and making the best use of the time that we have, sometimes it's not helpful. We pull in or you can input progress monitoring data right into our system. And you can actually do all sorts of different analyses around that data. And we do include baselines and all sorts of other things. So it's just a way for you to visualize the progress monitoring data that you really have. I like using our system work because it does it better sometimes than some of the other systems that are out there. We also have, if you have behavior interventions, this is a way that you can analyze the progress of those students in those intervention plans. And so what this actually is doing is it shows the percentage of time, or the percentage of points that the students earn on the check-out plan, some sort of daily progress report. And so that shows me over like the last 4 weeks how many points they've earned. And it even shows me trends. So I can see particular days a week that the student is struggling, doing better or worse. It allows me to see which behavioral skill are they doing well, or maybe they need some sort of social academic intervention group, so that we can actually teach the skill that the student has exited. And then you can also see what class of the day are the students struggling. So we do this again. We do this actually every 2 weeks in our school right now. We go kid by kid to talk about these data. Actually, we have 2 tier 2 meetings. One is talking about the system. The other one is talking about the kids and their progress. And again, like I said before, all things lead back to the student page. So when I have a student, I can see any current active interventions that they're in. As a teacher, everybody who has access to the student has access to all of this data. So it's closing that communication gap that often exists. EduPlanner was actually created for comments, and it's not just this little tiny piece of what we do, but you can see any comment that was written. I mentioned in our system about the meetings. How many of you have been at a meeting and you've heard somebody say, we talked about Johnny 35 times and nobody's done anything? Maybe it's just the school site. Okay. So in our system, if you're at a meeting and you make a comment about a student, that comment goes back to the student page. So you can see how many times have we talked about, in this case, little Mila. So all of the academic scores are on here. You can see that you've got attendance data, behavior data, academic data, any intervention plan, if they're on track or not on track for their goals, any comments, forms, observations even that you've done on students will all show up here and be available for everybody. So to me, like when we're thinking about effective practices in MTSS, we want to make sure that we're all on the same page because the work that we're doing is for kids. So I get excited about what I do for EduPlanner and now Illuminate. I'm going to be putting, like I said, to see how the 2 products come together. That's part of my role. And I appreciate you guys listening to me talk. I love talking RTI and MTSS and social emotional learning. It's one of my true passions. So I appreciate kind of running for today and giving us the opportunity to present. James.
Thanks. I love this idea that if 70% of our students aren't responding to our intervention, they're not broken. We are. Nobody's like putting that word out there, just holding people to it is so different. If you can't get 70% of our students to improve, we're the broken part of it. So the next part is also really speakers. We're going to be out in the lobby area just ready to talk through specific questions, issues, to meet and greet, snap a picture of the reads, get to a dinner restaurant, right? And so we have the stage for about an hour. So this is our time for you guys to explore, to iterate, to dream, and talk to our 5 incredibly smart people. If you need to hit the road to get out of the Chicago area before traffic headed, we also totally understand. I'm Southern California, so I'm used to communicating traffic. So the next hour is ours to shoot like impressions outside, and thank you so much for participating in our day today. It looks like our light progressions over here at the bar, so we can grab something on the way out.
I know that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. If we just nail it as yeah. Yeah. Formative, when we need to give a full and a full time. Close it, they're no longer. While we're in that. It's nice, right? Yeah. Now. But your other skills. So, big questions. No, he gave me. Let's be nice, you know, Mary brought back stuff when she went.
So yesterday, my daughter hit her 200 high school kids.
They played.
No, on Tuesday, but we did them 2 days in a row. No, I wasn't at the game because I was here pitching it. So. This is so weird. first guy here, the first speaker, Doug, sitting in the room. I don't know if you hear that echo here. This thing is shaped. So he was talking.